Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast. We're back once again to continue to help to educate you so that you feel comfortable as well as confident investing beyond your backyard. I'm your host, Billy Keels. And you know what? If you are a highly paid, busy professional in search of a wealth formula to optimize your returns, then this is absolutely the conversation that you're going to want to listen to until the very end. Because today's guest is not only a board certified surgeon, like neurosurgeon, and I really mean that. He's also an entrepreneur who's had multiple companies and has multiple companies. He's an asset manager with assets approximately 350 million under management. He can tell us a little bit more about that. He's also a world famous podcaster and financial educator. He's also the best-selling author of The 7 Secrets of Eternal Wealth. Want to welcome to the show, Dr. Buck Joffrey. Buck, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you, Billy?
I am doing very well and so looking forward to this conversation, my friend.
Good.
All right. So listen, Buck, you know the role, you know the drill here. I would love to help people understand where you are located in the United States to get us started.
I am, I live in a place called Montecito, California, which is unincorporated Santa Barbara, probably most famous at this point particularly for your listeners there in Europe. It's where Harry and Meghan just moved to. So so that's the town. It's basically called Montecito, and Santa Barbara is known as the American Riviera. Central coast of California, about an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe 2 hours north of Los Angeles.
Fantastic. So out on the left coast, Montecito. So thank you very much for that, Buck. And listen, I'd like to get things started also too with some positivity. So share with us, what's the most positive thing that's happened to you in the last 24 hours?
Well, positivity. Yeah. I mean, listen, I was hanging out with my kids this weekend. It was an 8-year-old's birthday. So we just had a great party. So that's probably the most positive thing.
All right. Fantastic. So, well, I know that's something that's really important to you as a father. We'll probably jump into some of that as well. And we also had a birthday party on this side of the pond as well. My oldest turned 11. So daddy's with our kids over the weekend. So awesome.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing that, Buck. Listen, I gave a couple of high level things to talk about you, some of the different accomplishments that you've had, but could you help our audience really just get a better understanding of your backstory and maybe some of the decisions that you've taken to get to this point in your journey?
Yeah, I went to med school, and at that point I was sort of following the typical route of academic success. I think that in Western society in general, we have, right? I mean, good students, A students, go down the path of, going to college, getting good grades, and then the cream of the cream ends up doing either medicine or law or something like that, some professional thing. And so I was caught up in that, ended up in medical school. Was a pretty motivated guy. As you mentioned, I did start out as a neurosurgery resident, and then ultimately, was trained in head and neck surgery and plastic surgery, and finished my training in about 2009, 2010. I started a practice. I actually was influenced by this book called The Cash Flow Quadrant from Robert Kiyosaki. And that made a big change in my life, because when I read it, it was like this new discovery of this world of entrepreneurship. I've never really understood the idea of being an entrepreneur. Now, most people, when they read Kiyosaki, they go straight to real estate, but he's really about entrepreneurship, right? Mm-hmm. And so this idea of financial freedom and, being your own boss, and all these things really became appealing. So I think I sort of took that information, started my first practice, ran it like a business, started another business, kind of kept doing that. And then when I started making a lot of money, had to figure out how to invest it. And that's when I again circled back to this idea of real estate. I was not initially, I bought apartment buildings in Chicago by myself, realized pretty quickly that there's a limitation to what you can do in that world by yourself. And then I started investing through limited partnerships with people like Ken McElroy, as you know, the Rich Dad advisor in real estate. And then fundamentally at that point realized that, hey, there's a business here that I think I'd be good at too, where instead of being on a limited partner on this stuff, I can actually, I'm perfectly capable of being a general partner on these deals and finding my own business. And so was able to do that. And really, that's really kind of where my primary business is in the business of real estate syndication now. Some partners that I have that are, pretty significant, pretty significant operators. So it's become a real estate private equity business. Essentially, that's kind of what I do for the most part now.
So you know what, and when you talk about the syndication and the real estate private equity is what you're doing, I think one of the things to also recognize is not only did you were on the path of the A student, you started recognizing that there were other opportunities. You said you mentioned as a limited partner, and then you recognized that there were opportunities for you to be able to take the lead. One of the things that I know about you talk about real estate. I know that you're also really, I like to think of the way that you do. You talked about the cash flow quadrant. It's really about real assets, right? Those types of different opportunities that exist in the marketplace that you can bring. So maybe if you could expand a little bit more, because I'd like to stretch it out, because I know real estate is the foundation, but maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I think the broader approach for me is businesses, individual businesses. Yeah. Okay, now it just so happens that the primary focus is the business of real estate. Why I call it the business of real estate is that, listen, this is there is one of the aha moments for me, and that made this business concept very appealing to me, was that at this scale, and I don't do single family houses, I don't do duplexes, eightplexes anymore. I mean, it's usually the smallest asset will be, a 300 unit, minimum $25-30 million asset. And I bring that up because there is a huge difference between real estate when you have a duplex or a single family home versus what it means to run a 500 unit, 600 unit, $70 million apartment complex. Mm-hmm. The main difference is this: one is being a landlord, and one is operating a business, right? So if you have 500-600 units of 500-600 units in Dallas, and that's not a landlord anymore, right? You're operating a small business, and every time you have those kinds of acquisitions, you're acquiring another business. So you can look at it as real estate. That happens to be the business that I focus on primarily. But it is, you're right, there is opportunity when things make sense to go into other businesses, because fundamentally I'm into sound businesses. So for example, as you do apartment buildings, I also do self-storage facilities. We were talking offline. I'm now in the space with automatic teller machines, ATMs, with a top 5 operator in the country. So where there's opportunity in business at a large scale with professional operators, right? These are important things. I can't emphasize enough. The partnerships have to be with professional operators, large scale professional operators. To me, that's critically important. And it's not to others, but for me it is. And the reason is that it's all about scale, and it's all about, reproducibility. It's all about, not worrying about rookie mistakes. And, we, in our group, my accredited investor group, the Wealth Formula Investor Group, we've placed about, 200 to $300 million in the last, you know, 3 years. So, that's a big responsibility. So we're not going to go out to, we're not going to partner with rookies. We want the best in class operators. That's at the end of the day what it is. It just so happens that most of it has been in real estate. But I think even that too, I'll just say, is probably going to change within the next year or two, as with some additional partnerships that I'm looking into.
So I appreciate you talking and sharing that with us, because one of the things, as I mentioned, I know about you is it does go beyond real estate, and when you talk about the landlord versus owning a business, it's a unique talent that you have, and you're able to then bring that forward to your investor group as you're also educating the marketplace and things like that. And we have that. I'm just curious because, right, we talked about real estate in the beginning. You and I talked offline about the ATMs. It's something that we both enjoy. It's something that you've now built and are building a strong partnership with. But talk to us a little bit about what caught your attention and why you want to go even deeper in the area of the ATM space.
Well, I mean, for me, the interesting thing, and I just obviously I just did a show on this, the Wealth Formula podcast with my partner Daryl Heller, but I think there's a few things. I think that first and foremost, I've known about this space for a long time. It has not always been the most opportune time to get involved, but it is. But I think right now, there's a few things. When you think about ATMs, and basically we're talking about cash machines, right? Machines that you go in and you get cash.
Yep.
And one of the first questions that people think about in that situation, first and foremost, is who's using cash? I mean, does anybody even use cash anymore? And the answer is yes. It tends to be the underbanked, the lower demographics in terms of, people who don't have credit cards and things like that. And so there's actually a significant increase year over year in the use of cash. And experiments in other countries of going cashless have largely failed. Even in they tried that in India, they've tried in a few other countries, and it's not worked. The cash ends up being a pretty important thing. And in the United States, there's absolutely zero legislation right now suggesting that cash should go away. So new technologies, whether that's the PayPal type softwares, even cryptocurrency, what they have done is they've essentially, what they compete with is credit cards. They don't really compete with cash. Cash has its own place, its own demographic. But so in a nutshell, cash is something that I think in order for it to go away, could it go away? Sure. But is it going to go anytime soon? I really don't see any signs of that. I think it's a generational change, and it's not going to happen overnight. And cash is very popular. 72% of the country strongly opposes the loss of cash. Now, the next thing is, given that, you say, okay, well, it's not going away. How can I? What other benefits to it are there? One is, right now, it's a huge hedge against a somewhat volatile economy. I mean, we're in apartment buildings in the niche we're in. We've actually done really well, but there is volatility. But understanding that people do need cash, that a significant portion of the population actually does, require cash just to live. That gives it an uncorrelated kind of perspective in terms of where it belongs in investment. So, even if the economy is good, the economy is bad, people need to eat. They're getting prepaid or they're getting prepaid debit cards, preloaded debit cards from the government for their assistance. They got to go get that money. So there is a role right now in an uncorrelated role as an investment there. And then finally, I think the big another big one for at least my investors in our group is that there's a significant tax benefit to it. The tax benefit is that you are buying real equipment, real assets that are depreciated. In the case of this kind of machinery, that depreciation is over 5 years, and you can take that over 5 years, or you can use the current bonus depreciation provisions and take the entire investment and write it off against other passive income in the first year. So there's a lot of benefits to it. I think the tax benefits are huge if you can make the tax benefits work for you, and it really relies on you having passive income. That can make the internal rate of return exceed 30%. And so effectively getting your money back in your pocket in 3 years. Now, this is a depreciating asset. So it's not like real estate where you sell it for a whole bunch more at the end. So in this situation, if you can take advantage of the tax benefits, you get paid back your capital in 3 years, and the next 4 years is pure profit, nothing else. Then it goes away. So I think where we are in the economy makes it make sense. Is it, superior to real estate? No, I don't think so. But I do think it's a nice complement given where we're at.
Yeah, and so given where we're at, I mean, you once again you have seen another opportunity where there is demand, there is a cash flow play, and there is the opportunity to optimize on tax benefits. So this is it's another potentially perfect storm for someone who is looking for that type of asset in their portfolio. So, you mentioned it before, but I'll just say it again. The podcast episode that you had with your operator is one that, I think the entire Going Long audience needs to go check out, listen to, because it's filled with lots and lots of information that, somebody may want to know more about it, and they can connect with you there. So, one of the other things, Buck, we talked about your kind of medical background, your love of business. Yep. And we talked about high paid professionals looking for this formula for wealth, right? Mm-hmm. And so can you talk us through what exactly is the wealth formula, Buck?
Yeah. Well, it's actually a pretty easy formula. I kind of ripped off this idea from the momentum, like Newtonian physics. Mass times velocity, right? So mass times velocity is momentum. But so anyway, so wealth is equal to mass times velocity times leverage. So wealth, I think the idea being that you could the way to create wealth quickly and efficiently is using three variables. One is mass, means you actually have to invest some money. The more investing that you do, the more money you're going to grow, because you got to have the best leverage, the best velocity in the world. And if you've got no money in it, it doesn't make any difference, right? So you got to figure out how you're going to invest. People talk about how the rich get richer. Well, one of the reasons is they have a lot of money to invest, right? I mean, a significant portion of your capital that you have that you make, you're actually just going in and recycling it and making more money. So speaking of recycling, that takes us to velocity. Velocity, I think, is a better way to think about money and yield than it is to straight up look at cash on cash or something like that. Velocity is how quickly you get your initial capital back in your pocket. So let's take, for example, my dad, who's been in real estate for a long time, is always the quote unquote cash flow guy, right? He's been talking about cash flow way before I ever heard Robert Kiyosaki say cash flow. And I didn't bother listening to him though, because he was my dad, right?
Right.
But he's been talking about cash flow for 40 years and 50 years, and so what he did is he just built, he's mostly into the smaller stuff like, duplexes, triplexes, whatever. And he buys them and he's making, maybe makes 10, 15% per year at best, maybe 10%, because he's not even using leverage. He's not even leveraging this stuff. He just buys it. Right. Mm-hmm. So for him, if you're making 10% per year, to get your capital out of that deal is going to take 10 years. And then you can start saying it's profit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do is I want to create a scenario where we start profiting earlier. So if we can get our money out of a deal within, say, 36 months or, maybe 4 years at the most, and recycle it, then we don't need to just keep making more money, right? We just recycle the same money. So that's what I talk about velocity all the time, which is like, start thinking about your investments as how quickly can I get my money out of my deals. So for example, one of our operators, their model calls for 50% capital return on most opportunities by year, but on average 24 months, and then the rest of it within the next 24 months, and then you get a bump in terms of your exit, your capital gain. But in the meantime, you've already got a bunch of your money back, and you redeploy that over and over and over again. So in that scenario, we have one investor who started out with $750,000 over the course of 5-6 years of investing. It's not 750 into one deal, but over 5-6 years. So maybe, a little bit over 100 a year. Mm-hmm. And in doing so, just by reinvesting into our stuff over and over, and then refining and reinvesting, that $750,000 is now worth $4 million in principal. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to everybody, but that's the idea of velocity. It's about how quickly you can get your money out and redeploy it. He doesn't put any more capital into these deals out of pocket. He only recycles what's in the deals, and he keeps moving it in and out. Similarly, with ATMs, we talked about the fact that, your tax equivalent return on capital is 3 years, right? So every year you're going to get, 25%, 30% of your capital back, and you can redeploy that into something else. So the actual return on capital can be significantly higher than the return on investment in any given investment, right? So that's the critical piece. It's about how quickly you can move things. It's not just about what the yield is, but how quickly you can move things. The last piece of it is leverage, because leverage is going to be the key to creating velocity in many cases. If you can refinance something, it's because of leverage, and get your money out of a deal and completely de-risk an opportunity. Leverage allows you to do that in real estate. So leverage is important. It's debt, right? It's debt. And, there's this crazy idea, not a crazy idea. Maybe it makes sense for a lot of people, because leverage is dangerous, right? It's debt, and it's dangerous, but it's also probably the only way you're going to get really rich. I mean, unless you're a rock star, or some unicorn type stuff. But the only way you can get rich by investing, in my opinion, is by strong and smart use of leverage.
So you've just broken down a number of things that are really important, from the leverage, also talking about velocity. And Buck, the fact that you gave so much time and attention to that, I think this is one of the key areas, right, of being able to be able to get your initial capital back and be able to do it over and over and over and over. And then the amount that you're placing, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And so that's the wealth formula as defined by Dr. Buck Joffrey. And I guess that was the 1.0 version, right? And I know, like everything else, there's an evolution of wealth formula. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about the evolution of that wealth formula.
Well, I'd say that's 2.0. I think
that is 2.0. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's 2.0. Getting your money back and so on, and using leverage and velocity. I think the 1.0 is the idea of, okay, get your 4 houses and,
Gotcha.
That kind of straight up cash flow play. And I think that, I don't even know if that's 1.0, that might be 2.0, and this might be 3.0, right? Because 1.0 would be just give all your money to some third party to put in some some fund,
Yeah.
some kind of stock market fund, some mutual funds. That's probably 1.0. 2.0 is probably, the idea of buying houses and just cash flowing. And, like my dad's doing, right? He's done it successfully. It's just, he could have done a lot more. I think if he thought about velocity, he thought about leverage and all these things that really, I think that really take it to the next level.
Yeah. Okay. Probably could have done more and maybe faster. Right.
Yeah.
So Buck, I know one of the things that you are you are a really big proponent of this abundance mindset, right? At the same time, I know that you can be constructively competitive, and so being able to push and want to have things happen faster and better. So how do you find the mix from having that great abundance mindset that you have, at the same time, maybe people tend to think about win or lose, and that can be a scarcity mindset. So there's a real balance there. Help us, because you do it successfully. Maybe help us to understand how you are able to get that balance of abundance mindset and bringing everybody forward.
Yeah, I think abundance is about, for me, it's just understanding that there's a lot of resources out there, right? There's a lot of way to, if you're making a lot of money, it doesn't happen. It doesn't have to happen at the expense of somebody else, right? So I think really, like, to the point of being competitive, I think I'm really competitive in the sense of what I can do. And I try very hard, although, everybody does it. Try not to compare yourself to everybody else. But I think what I'm trying to do in my space with my investor group is to bring opportunities to my investors, to explain them and things that I wouldn't invest in myself. And I do invest in these things myself, like ATMs and all the real estate that we do. And understand that the bigger goal here is that everybody wins, everybody makes money. I don't like to squeeze investors. Sometimes I think you get into situations where, you have some level of success on the operations side and you start squeezing and squeezing and squeezing more and more profits away from investors. I don't think that's a good way to do it. I think Kenny McElroy is a great example of a guy who's kept the same model of, the type of, returns and splits and stuff. It doesn't, the syndicator and the operators and stuff deserve to get paid. Otherwise, they're not going to do it. They're not going to make you money. But on the other hand, I think they're, just trying not to get greedy. I think it's just understand that you're playing the long game to the extent that, if your investors are making money and you're making money, and other people are going to try to emulate and copy what you're doing, and that's fine too. But, you just have to kind of not pay attention to the noise.
Got you. So don't pay attention to the noise, having that abundance mindset and really doing I guess it comes down to some of the basics, right? And being able to do the right thing. There was you got started in this, and you've been doing this for quite a while, Buck, right? And you've been educating, you've been helping, you've been building businesses. But maybe if you could take a kind of a step back, and when you got involved in educating and really maybe in the podcasting space, you recognized that there was something that was missing, right? And especially for those high paid professionals. So what was the impetus for you to actually like really get out there and carve out this space for the highly paid professional and talk to them? Because you're one of the people that does it in the most really beneficial and heartfelt way that's out there. So,
well, I think it's just, I think the impetus is anytime you like something, right? And enjoy it, then it's easy to talk about. I think for me, it's really about, trying to, I get interested in stuff. I like to talk to people about it. It gives me a platform to pick the brains of a lot of smart people. And then, I think I've always been a little bit of a teacher, and I've enjoyed that aspect of it. So it makes it a little bit it's a fairly natural thing for me to do. Let's put it that way. I mean, I think I don't, I've had friends who've talked about doing podcasts and stuff like that. But I think it's certainly not, it's not a particularly easy thing sometimes because it's a little bit of a content wheel, that kind of thing. But when you start getting feedback and you realize you're really making a difference and benefiting people, it kind of keeps you going. It takes a while to get there. But yeah, I mean, I think I enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy the content. I like talking about it. And at the end of the day, like, interviewing people for me is great because, that's how I learn. So.
Well, which is awesome, and it's one of the reasons that you have such a strong, loyal following, and so many more people that continue to be inspired by you. So, Buck, there's also something else, right? I know you're a big football fan, right? And sometimes we have to make choices in life, and you recently made a choice, right? Because I guess you could have gone after the dream of playing for the Vikings or something like that, and you and you decided to go into the sales aspect of real estate, which maybe some people would say, well, why would a guy who's a seasoned investor go into a real estate agent? But I want to tie this back in, but talk to us a little bit about why you made that decision and how that kind of plays into the overall philosophy that you have.
Yeah. So, yeah, I know it's kind of one of those things that everybody takes a double take at. Why are you doing that kind of thing? I recently got my, real estate license here in California. And I got interested in selling luxury real estate. So it's kind of a little unusual because I'm already dealing, I've already got over $300 million of real commercial stuff, apartment buildings, et cetera. So why am I here trying to, sell homes? Well, as it turns out that, there's certain things that you do on a daily basis that sometimes become sort of monotonous and sort of like don't get you out of the house. You end up becoming more of like, a quant. You end up being a guy who just looks at numbers all day long, or those are kinds of things I do with my day job, so to speak, right? My real estate syndication. But what I felt like I needed to do is actually wanted some element of my life to actually involve getting out of the house in my community. And so, I have I have a fair amount of time. It's not like I think I've controlled my life pretty well in terms of, controlling my time. So I thought, well, what would I do if I could do anything just for fun? And, I was thinking, well, what do they tell you? What do you do when you by yourself and you've got time? Well, I sit there on Zillow and Trulia and all these things, and I look at luxury homes, right? So I thought, well, why don't I give it a shot? So anyway, I got my license. Of course, COVID hit. So there's not a lot of fun right now. So everything's kind of on hold, but I was planning on doing that. I haven't really done it yet, but I think it's just one of those things where I think sometimes you have to look at your life and think about what's missing and what you can inject in there. For me, the idea of, selling luxury homes is, well, first I get to go to these luxury homes and check them out. And I get to, be around a lot of people interested in buying them. I meet a lot of interesting people doing it. It just sounded fun. That's what it came down to. It just sounded fun. So.
Yeah. And so aside from, sounding fun, I know it is fun, but what you're helping everyone to understand, even highly paid, busy professionals, is when you are able to carve out the type of lifestyle that you want. Because at the end of the day, this is what this is about. This is one of the things that I see that you're helping living by example, is that, you were there and this is something that you wanted to be able to do with your time. You're building also new relationships, and you're occupying a mental space, which is a fantastic example. So thanks for sharing that with us, Buck. Greatly appreciate it. I guess kind of before we kind of wrap things up, also family life. We talked about it. Like, you're busy. You've got a lot going on. I know a lot of people that are very busy professionals say, I just want to make a lot of money and I want to get out there and I want to do things. And you start realizing that, not only being an educator, a business owner, an investor, father and husband is pretty awesome. So maybe you could talk to us about how you've been able to design that life with family and really be able to maximize everything.
Well, bad timing on that one because I was recently separated. but it's all amicable. Listen, my kids, I'm all about my kids. I spend every minute I can with my kids, and I do have a lot of time. I do have time, and I try to carve it out. It's really, really difficult in in this world right now to be present. I think you really got to focus on, activities. You got to focus on not only, being in the room, but being there. I mean, I think one of the best and worst inventions of all time is this cell phone and the smartphone, and it's just you've just got to be there for them. You've got to be there. You got to do stuff. I mean, we're carving pumpkins together. We're making cakes and all that kind of stuff. I got 3 little girls, so I think that's just the biggest thing. I mean, if you have time, you can do these things. I think I think it's hard for people who are working all the time to to come back after a long day, an 8-10 hour day, and try to focus on the kids, especially when there's these other things that are addictive that are available, like smartphones and technology. But I think that's a big part of it.
No, and it's one of those things that we go through all the time in technology. Yes, we try to keep the technology away, and there's always that fine line, right? About I was speaking with just a couple of friends not too long ago. That is it quantity or is it quality, right? In terms of the time that we spend with the kids, and I guess it's probably a combination of the two, right? It's not one or the other. It's
right,
kind of finding that right balance.
Right.
Buck, man, we've talked about a number of things. I guess the one last thing before we get into the going long final 3 is you're doing so many things. You've already talked about. You made allusion to it earlier, like thinking about what things are going to look like in a couple of years down the road. I would love for you to share with us. If we could, you close your eyes and say, okay, 2 years from now, how many lives is Buck Joffrey impacting? What is Buck Joffrey's businesses and life look like? Share that with us, man.
Yeah, I think we continue to go down this road of building, the private equity side of things, because I think it is changing a lot of lives. I've had people who dramatically increased their their cash value, their net worth, their the amount of passive income that they have, all these things. So. I think that, I continue to do that. I do think that there's probably a role going forward, to add to those kinds of things. I am looking at a partnership potentially with my brother, who was running a sovereign wealth fund in the Middle East up until a couple of years ago. So he knows what he's doing in this private equity business space. So we'll probably get into that and start focusing on some business acquisitions as well. I think other than that, I think continuing along this journey, I think that hopefully I'll be able to get out there post COVID and have more live events and continue to spread the word. But I don't see anything hugely dramatic. I mean, maybe I become like a famous luxury realtor in Montecito. I don't know, but. I think I'm on a trajectory where I'm not really looking necessarily to make any huge changes anymore. I'm just kind of looking at, adding on to what I have and which I think all this stuff is good. So.
Well, it's awesome, man. And you're continuing to impact so many lives positively. I can tell you, you've positively impacted me and continue to inspire me. So I'm looking forward to wonderful things from you in the next couple of years. So, and day to day. So listen, Buck, I guess, we're getting to that point of the show where it's, the going long final three. So the thing is, I'll ask you the questions as long as you tell me you're ready. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Awesome. Here we go. So Buck, what is your, well, I'm here in Barcelona, and so I asked you where you were in the States, and I'd love for you to tell me, what is your favorite European city, either that you visited or still on your bucket list?
Well, my favorite city that I visited was Rome. I love Rome and the history of Rome, and people were so great. But I love Italy in general. I think it's great, and also, I mean, you're in Spain, right? I'd love to go to Spain.
Yeah. Well, I'm ready. I'm ready for you. I'm ready for you. So let me know.
Yeah.
Just got to be able to travel a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. I think I'll be doing a lot more of that once this thing is over. So.
All right, awesome. So we'll give it up to Rome, Italy. I also lived in Sardinia for a while, so I'm a big fan of Italy as well. Buck, listen, you're extremely successful, and because of that, you've probably only made one mistake along the way. It's probably only success for you, right? That's what all the successful people tell me, or maybe not. Maybe you've had one or two mistakes. Most importantly, you've learned from those mistakes. But if you could think of one lesson that you would like share with someone else, so that they may not pay 100% for the exact same mistake.
I think what you have to be careful not to become a single point failure machine. And I think that's a very difficult thing to achieve, to not become a single point failure machine. But what I mean by that is, so business owners, for example, and whether it's, business or practices or whatever, they often have like sort of one stream of income, one thing that really their entire life is runs on. And if for some reason you can't do that business anymore, or you're terminated, or you're there's some reason lost the capacity to do that thing, or your job becomes irrelevant because of technology, then all of a sudden you have nothing else. I think I spent and for business owners, that is, even though that you can't generally get fired from your own business for the most part, it's a problem too, because what you can end up doing is just investing everything you have in the same business over and over, and just growing the same thing, and trying to get it bigger and bigger and bigger until suddenly, you've either hit the home run you were trying to hit with some sort of divestment, or things go wrong and all of a sudden you're left with nothing, right? So that's why I call a single point failure. I think that for me, I'm very paranoid about single point failure all the time. So I've kind of had this rule of thumb where I want to always have at least like 3 different things going, have some sort of business related activity, income coming from 3 different places, et cetera. I think it's a good place to strive for. I've had close to single point failure before, like when I first started out, and I was just in doing plastic surgery in Chicago. And it was, a couple of bad months because of the elections and things like that. And it's just a scary place to be. So as much as you can, focusing on sort of a broader base of, multiple streams of income, et cetera. I know people talk about that all the time, but it's really important for stability in life.
Okay, love that. And so really driving home the point of avoid the single point of failure. And so you've given us some examples of also how you've worked on minimizing that and creating actually 3 times that. So awesome. And I guess the last question for you, Buck. Now, I've talked about earlier that you are a best-selling author, The 7 Secrets of Eternal Wealth. So we'll also include that in the show notes. Buck, can you recommend, what book would you recommend to the Going On audience?
Well, the book that changed my life was that Kiyosaki book, The Cash Flow Quadrant. That's the one I would recommend. Okay. My 7 Secrets of Eternal Wealth, that is a Wealth 1.0 book, right? And it's more just about cash flow and essentials and stuff like that. And I think it's worth a read. But I will say that the Kiyosaki book, the Cash Flow Quadrant book, I think is a must read for anybody who's trying to make headway in this world. To have a a paradigm or perspective to approach it from. Now, listen, Robert doesn't give you nuts and bolts on what to do and how to get there. And that's in some degree, that's kind of what I'm doing with my show, right? But I think the perspective and the paradigm change that you can get with Cash Flow Quadrant, if you've not read it, or read, some of the Kiyosaki stuff in general, is I think is really, really valuable.
Fantastic. So Cash Flow Quadrant, we will also include that in the show notes as your recommendation. And so, Buck, there are so many things that you have shared with us. Just your number one, your ability to be the high earner, also the overachiever as it relates to grades, being able to get out there and also start to recognize that you have this skill, this talent, this unique ability to recognize business opportunities, to be able to translate that for other people so that they can see where the benefits are. You talked about, just your real estate as a base, also too, not as a landlord, more importantly, as a business owner. And so this is something that you're really helping us with today. You've talked also too about the importance of life just outside of business as well, what it means when you have your time, some of the areas you can focus your energies on. And you've given us the wealth formula, right? And not only version 1, you've given us version 2 and version 3. And so I know I gained so much value from you, Buck, and I would know that there are so many other people that are like, oh my gosh, I'm hearing Buck for the first time. I've got to figure out how in the world can I enter into his world? How can I find out more about him, his teams? So Buck, help us understand what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Oh, it's the podcast for sure. Wealth Formula podcast, Buck Joffrey. You go to wealthformula.com. There's some resources there to check out as well. But yeah, pretty easy. You can find the podcast pretty much anywhere, right? iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, etc.
Buck, you make it very easy for us to find you. So yes, listen, everybody, definitely reach out to Buck. Check out his website. He's got so much useful information there. And on a weekly basis, you really need to be listening to the knowledge that he is sharing, the guests that he has on his Wealth Formula podcast, because it's absolutely amazing. So Buck, listen, from the bottom of my heart, man, I just want to thank you for investing your time with me as well as with the entire Going Long audience today.
You got it. Anytime, Billy.
All right. Thanks so much. And listen, Going Long audience. So this has been fantastic. Had a chance to listen to and learn from Dr. Buck Joffrey. It's been absolutely amazing. I know the two of us would love to know what you think about today's episode, some in terms of the things that you've learned. I'll probably have a couple of extra questions for Buck or for me. So why don't you go ahead and feel free to share today's episode with at least 2 other people, make that positive impact on other people's lives. And go ahead and leave us a review. If you want to leave a 5-star review, we'll take those as well. And just from me, Billy Keels, to you, I'm really looking forward to welcoming you back on the very next episode of the Going Long podcast. And until then, go out and make it a great day.
Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? When I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.